Good afternoon or good evening to everybody who is watching me, and I would like to thank those who are asking me all the time questions. Just 1 second, I'm just going to put my earpiece so that I can then be able to make it better to sound. Now, today we are going to talk about specialized translators and literary translators and the difference between them. Many people think that what is the difference between specialized translators and literary translators, and that is really some sort of the query which one of the scholars have actually highlighted, which is Kim Grego in her book 2010, which I've translated as Tarjama al-Mutakhassisa. Now, the first thing that you need to know is the difference between literary translation and specialized translation. What is the difference between them? This is the first question you have to ask yourself. Before I carry on, before I start really, I just want to thank Hassan Adil Khuddro, who has been very following up with my videos, and he's been making lots of comments, but he did ask for my notes, and I can't actually provide notes for a simple reason that these are my notes, and I do not share them as much. I can explain them, talk about them, but I cannot share my notes. Otherwise, it'll be a sort of copyright issue. Now, let me just sort of look at with you of what is the difference. That's the first question you need to ask yourself. What's the difference between literary translation and specialized translation? Now, the first element that you need to look at or know about this is, according to Grego, of course, in her book, is that the specialized translation is particular, whereas literary translation is universal. In other words, in specialized translation, you might come across textbooks like contract, for example. The contract is set for a period of time. So when you translate it, it will be particular because it will only be applied to a specific time and a specific period. In other words, if we find a contract which is signed like 10 years ago and it's translated 10 years ago, it will be irrelevant to the current situation that we are in, for example. If it is a political translation, the same thing. It will be only for a particular event or an activity that's happening that you are translating or interpreting, for that matter. But for literary translation is more universal, i.e. it's globalized in the sense of its text itself is not addressing, it's not addressing a specific audience, but everybody, like a poem or a novel or a drama, which you translate from one language to another. And that is what happens. So the other point, in a way, what it is, it's globalized, universal, the literary, as opposed to particular, for a particular occasion, which is the specialized. Like, for example, if you are translating how to operate or the manual of a mobile phone, for example, 10 years ago, that manual is no longer valid nowadays, because nowadays that translation will be out of time. So, in other words, specialized translation is usually for immediate consumption, i.e. you immediately consume it or use it for a particular event or a particular political, commercial, medical. In the medical, if it is to do with medications, these medications, after a while, there will be more new ones, so the old ones will not be considered as valid, if you like. So, whereas in the literary translation, it is destined to last. So, for example, a poem by a well-known Arabic poet like Antara, for example, will be it is destined to last. I.e., the romantic novel that or poem that he has done will be applied to any. It will last. It doesn't matter which age it's been written in. I mean, apart from various little details in the poem, perhaps. But that is what literary language is. It will appear, it might appear a little bit of a specialized, or a specialized language being used. It's one type of it. But now, the purpose is of literature in general, as you know, is different from those that are non-literary texts when you are translating. The purpose of literature is usually entertainment. You are reading a novel to enjoy it, or reading a poem to see the beauty of it, or you are looking at it. The purpose of it could be also no purpose at all. It could be just only aesthetic purpose in literary texts. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of texts that you would like to sort of maybe not more talking, but more of looking at these texts to see what kind of things that you will be looking at. And see, this text here is what I've just been saying about being literary and the non-literary texts, specialized texts. Both of them are valid and both of them have got different kind of features, if you like. Now, when we look at the technical translators, as in Write and Write 1993, where they point out that a translator, look at this, technical translators are typically either trained. Now, let's see what kind of translators do we have here. Okay, there are two types of translators, if you like. One translator, let's see what they say. So they said technical translators are typically either trained linguists, i.e. like people who are studying language, who develop specialized research skills along with ancillary knowledge in selected technical areas. So this is one type. The one type which is they are linguists and they are interested in a certain area and they want to read about it and be interested in, like engineering or medical or commercial or whatever it is that specialized in. The other type of they are actually not linguists. They are like engineers or scientists or other area specialists, like in sports, for example. There are some people who are specialized in their own area, like engineers or like medical doctors, nurses, for example, or tradesmen, people who are in commerce, for example, the businessmen. They are specialized in their own area. But they have developed, as I said here, as it says here, who have developed a high degree of linguistic knowledge. And this linguistic knowledge, they apply to the translation of texts in their field of specialization. Okay, so if that is the case, then we are talking about two groups here. One group who are linguists, trained linguists, and they have some knowledge in a particular field or a particular technical field. And then the other one is the ones that are specialized in their own fields, like scientists, lab engineers, experts, or you know, and they are actually have got some knowledge in the language, and they think that they can do it. Now, to be honest with you, here it is very important to say this, that it is still important to differentiate between the two, but both of them, both sides can do really well in translation, i.e. those who are experts in their field, they can do well, and those and they know a little bit of knowledge in of the linguistic knowledge. And then you have another type who are linguists who study language, and they are interested in certain area, like for example in sports, for example. They are interested in this specialized field of sports. So they can actually translate, and both of them can do really well. Okay? So there is no special preference between the two. Because if we take, for example, in the medical field, if you've got a doctor, medical doctor, the medical doctors are specialized in their own field. They know a bit of English, but their English is not, it's just only general background information about English. They do know the terminology, however, they do know the illnesses and the medications, but when we ask them to translate a book, there might be an issue of the language, understanding fully the language, because as you know, specialized texts will have terminology, will have specific meaning to every single term they are using. So they have to be more careful. So they might ask an expert in linguistics or a linguist to see what's the meaning of a certain text or a certain paragraph or a certain sentence. The other type, however, are the ones who are linguists, and they know about, for example, the medical field, but they only know basic information and background. So they can ask other people, and like nurses and doctors, but they are still the ones who will do the translation. Both of them can do well, and when you ask doctors and when you ask nurses, they use them as tools. They don't use them as themselves doing the work for them, because they might make mistakes and they might not understand the language properly. I hope if there is any questions or anybody who's online who would like to ask any questions, I'll be more than happy to be answering them. But this is really what you can always, of course, go to my website and see any of the videos and send me a message. I usually get a message and I answer it straight away, as in the case of, for example, Hassan, when he was asking me about some of my notes, or another who was asking me, or Amal as well, and so on. So it's all of them are asking for clarification sometimes, and sometimes they want more to talk about certain points, which I explain to them because they are a PhD, doing their PhDs or doing their masters, and they want to know more about research side of translation studies. Now I'm going to stop here, and what I will do is I will be giving you another session, hopefully next week, the same time, where I will be talking about features of medical reports, which is quite a specialized text here, so that you will, when you look at a medical report, what are the features that you need to know. We will look at a small little report and we will point out some of its features for you, so you know and you are aware of what are the features of a medical report for a translator, whether that translator is a linguist, trained linguist who develops specialized skills and some knowledge in a selected technical area, or they are an engineer or a scientist or other specialist in a specialist in other area who has developed a high degree of linguistic skill or linguistic knowledge, and they want to apply that knowledge to the translation of texts in their field. Have a nice day, and I'll speak to you next week, next Saturday. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.